The Trial of Defiance. The crystalline spires of the Galactic Council's chambers pierced the purple sky of Centauri Prime, their surfaces reflecting the light of 3 suns. Inside, Commander Marcus Hayes stood before the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds, his military posture unwavering despite the chains binding his wrists. The council chamber stretched hundreds of meters high, with hovering platforms carrying delegates from across the galaxy. High Arbiter Zenith, a being of pure energy contained within an ornate metallic shell, spoke first. Commander Marcus Hayes of Earth, you stand accused of violating galactic law by concealing quantum shield technology from the Council's oversight. How do you plead? Marcus lifted his chin, his gray eyes reflecting the determination that had earned him command of Earth's defense fleet at just 35 years old. I plead in accordance with my duty to protect Earth and its people. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Draconid representative, Ambassador Krell, leaned forward on his platform, scales gleaming under the chamber's light. You deliberately withheld technology that could have saved lives across the galaxy. Your species has been part of this council for barely 2 decades, yet you dare to defy our most fundamental laws. We withheld nothing that was yours to take, Marcus responded, his voice carrying across the chamber. The quantum shield technology was developed by Earth scientists, paid for with Earth resources, and meant to protect Earth citizens. High Arbiter Zenith's energy form pulsed with barely contained anger. The Council's laws are clear. All significant technological advances must be shared for the benefit of all species. All species who have been members for at least a century, Marcus countered. Convenient that Earth wouldn't qualify for another 80 years, long enough for our technology to be stripped and our defenses weakened. The chamber erupted in outrage. The Sylphid delegation, their translucent wings shimmering with indignation, called for immediate sanctions against Earth. The Mechanoid Collective's representatives emitted harsh bursts of static that their translators rendered as demands for human technology to be forcibly appropriated. Only the Andoran delegate, Master Theorist Lyra, remained silent, her silver eyes studying Marcus with what might have been understanding. The Andorans, among the oldest species in the galaxy, had long maintained a policy of neutrality in council affairs. High Arbiter Zenith raised his upper appendages, calling for silence. The Council has deliberated on your case, Commander Hayes. Given the severity of your crimes and your unrepentant attitude, we sentence you to exile on Nexus 7. The chamber fell silent. Even the most vocal critics of humanity seemed shocked by the severity of the sentence. Nexus 7 was infamous throughout the galaxy, a world of perpetual storms, crushing gravity and predators that had evolved to hunt in conditions that would kill most sentient beings instantly. Marcus's expression didn't change, but his hands clenched into fists. Before you carry out this sentence, I want to make something clear. You're not punishing me, you're declaring war on humanity. We survived an Earth that tried to kill us for millions of years. We endured ice ages, asteroids, plagues, and our own destructive nature. We clawed our way to the stars despite every obstacle the universe threw at us. He took a step forward, causing the guard drones to raise their weapons. You think Nexus 7 will break me? Earth's gravity is 3 times stronger than most of your homeworlds. Our planet's wildlife would consider your worst predators prey. Our weather systems spawn storms that would tear your cities apart. Enough, Zenith's energy form flared blindingly bright. Your primitive bravado does not impress this council. You will be transported to Nexus 7 immediately. The galaxy will watch as you learn humanity's true place in the cosmic order. As the guard drones moved to escort him out, Marcus looked directly at the council's recording devices, knowing his words would reach Earth. Remember this day. Remember that they feared us enough to try to break us. And remember that humanity has never broken. The transport ship that would carry Marcus to Nexus 7 waited in high orbit. As he was led aboard, the ship's AI announced that the Council's judgment would be broadcast across all known space. They wanted his death to serve as a warning to any species that might consider defying Council authority. What they didn't understand was that humanity had already received their message. In underground bunkers and hidden laboratories across Earth, Scientists and military leaders watched the trials broadcast. In the Pacific Defense Command, Admiral Victoria Stone closed her eyes briefly before turning to her staff. "Initiate Protocol Prometheus," she ordered, "and send word to our friends among the Andorans. It's time to show the galaxy why Earth was never conquered." As Marcus's transport ship entered hyperspace, he smiled faintly. The Council thought they were writing humanity's epitaph. Instead, they had just authored the beginning of their own end, survival against all odds. The transport ship's hull groaned as it penetrated Nexus 7's turbulent atmosphere. Through the viewport, Marcus Hayes watched lightning bolts thick as skyscrapers tear across skis the color of bruised flesh. The planet's 3 moons created devastating tidal forces, causing the ground below to shift and crack continuously. This was where the Council sent those they wanted to make examples of, where they sent those they wanted to die. The ship's AI spoke in its artificially pleasant tone. "Preparing for prisoner deployment. Warning, external conditions exceed safety parameters. Survival probability, 0.003%. Marcus checked the seals on his environment suit, the only piece of equipment the Council had generously allowed him. It was rated for standard hostile environments, not the nightmare that awaited below. That was intentional, of course. They wanted him to suffer before he died. The ship reached its deployment altitude and opened its cargo bay. Hurricane-force winds immediately buffeted Marcus as he stood at the edge. Below, the landscape was a maze of jagged black rock formations and rivers of something that glowed an ominous purple. The ship's AI began its countdown. "Deployment in 5, 4. Marcus took a deep breath. "See you in hell." He jumped before the countdown finished. The fall through Nexus 7's atmosphere was like being caught in a giant's fist. The planet's enhanced gravity pulled at him with crushing force, while stratospheric winds threatened to tear him apart. His suit's sensors screamed warnings about the atmospheric pressure, toxic gas levels, and radiation. He ignored them all, focusing instead on controlling his descent. Back on Earth, Admiral Victoria Stone stood in the Pacific Defense Command's war room, watching the live feed of Marcus's deployment along with military leaders from around the world. The Council's broadcast was being pirated and decoded by Earth's best cyber warfare specialists. "They think they're showing the galaxy our weakness," she said, her voice tight with controlled anger. "Instead, they're about to learn what humans do best: survive." On her command screen, updates from Operation Prometheus streamed in. Hidden shipyards across the solar system were now operating at full capacity. The quantum shield technology that had sparked this crisis was being integrated into every vessel Earth could build. More importantly, the encrypted channels to their allies among the Andorans were alive with activity. Marcus hit the ground hard enough to crack ribs, even with his suit's inertial dampeners. He rolled with the impact, decades of training taking over. The surface of Nexus 7 was even worse than it had looked from above. The purple rivers weren't liquid at all. They were streams of ionized gas that would dissolve organic matter on contact. The black rocks weren't rocks. They were colonies of crystalline organisms that vibrated at frequencies designed to shatter bones. He activated his suit's atmospheric analyzer. The air was a cocktail of poisons that would kill most species instantly. The gravity was crushing, about 4 times Earth standard. But there was something familiar about these conditions. Something that reminded him of the stories his grandfather used to tell about growing up in the deep mining colonies of Mercury. "Hostile environment protocols engaged," he muttered to himself, falling back on his training. "Step 1, secure shelter. Step 2, establish resources. Step 3, adapt and survive." The Council's cameras tracked him as he made his way across the lethal landscape. They expected him to panic, to run blindly until his suit failed and the planet killed him. Instead, they watched as he methodically tested different rock formations, analyzed wind patterns, and began to construct a shelter using techniques that had kept humans alive in the worst conditions Earth had to offer. In the Council chambers, the alien representatives watched with growing unease. High Arbiter Zenith's energy form flickered with frustration. "Impossible! No sentient being has survived more than 6 hours on Nexus 7. The Andoran delegate, Lyra, spoke for the first time since the trial. Perhaps we should consider the possibility that we have fundamentally misunderstood humans and their capabilities. On Earth, Admiral Stone's Operation Prometheus was moving into its second phase. Deep within the asteroid belt, automated factories began producing components for weapons that the Council had banned centuries ago. On Mars, underground bases activated defense systems that had been hidden since humanity first joined the galactic community. "Send word to our Andoran friends," Stone commanded. "Tell them that the timeline has accelerated. We'll need their support sooner than we planned." Back on Nexus 7, Marcus had established his first shelter, a cave system in one of the more stable rock formations. He had already begun to identify patterns in the planet's chaos. The lightning strikes followed predictable paths dictated by the moon's positions. The crystalline life forms became dormant during certain atmospheric conditions. Most importantly, he had found something the Council's sensors had missed: signs of ancient structures buried beneath the surface. As night fell and Nexus 7's 3 moons cast their baleful light across the landscape, Marcus began to dig. His suit's power was failing, but he had already created backup systems using techniques learned from centuries of human survival in hostile environments. The Council wanted this to be his tomb. Instead, he would turn it into humanity's proving ground. In the war room, Admiral Stone received word that the Andoran Diplomatic Corps had requested an emergency session with the Council. At the same time, her tactical display showed hundreds of ships emerging from hidden shipyards throughout the solar system. Each one was equipped with quantum shields that could withstand any known weapon. "They thought sending Marcus to Nexus 7 would break humanity's spirit," she said to her assembled staff. "Instead, they just gave us the excuse we needed to show the galaxy what humanity is truly capable of. The real question is, will they realize their mistake before it's too late?" As if in answer, new alerts began flashing across her screens. The Council's military forces were mobilizing. The final confrontation between humanity and the Galactic Council was about to begin. The rising tide. 2 weeks had passed since Marcus's exile began, and the Galactic Council's broadcast had transformed from an execution spectacle into something entirely unexpected, a demonstration of human resilience that was captivating audiences across the galaxy. In his makeshift shelter beneath Nexus 7's surface, Marcus had not only survived but begun to thrive, turning the Council's punishment into an unintended message of hope. Deep in the crystalline caverns, Marcus traced his fingers along ancient markings that predated the Council itself. "This isn't just a death world," he spoke into his suit's recorder, knowing the Council was still monitoring every word. "This is a vault. Someone turned this planet into a weapon to hide something." The walls of his excavation revealed technology that defied conventional understanding. Patterns in the crystal formations weren't natural. They were data storage systems of incomprehensible complexity. Every discovery was a silent rebellion against the Council's authority, proof that their knowledge wasn't as absolute as they claimed. In the Council chambers, panic was setting in. High Arbiter Zenith's energy form had become erratic, flickering between states as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. "The humans are mobilizing their entire solar system for war," a Draconid intelligence officer reported. "Our deep space sensors detect quantum shield signatures far beyond what they claim to possess." Ambassador Krell's scales had lost their luster, turning a sickly gray as he processed the implications. "How did we not see this? Their entire solar system is a fortress. Those mining operations in their asteroid belt, they were weapons factories. The research stations on their moons, military installations." The Andoran delegate, Lyra, stood from her seat, her silver eyes reflecting the chaos around her. "Perhaps we should consider the possibility that our judgment was premature. The humans have not violated our laws. They have simply protected themselves from those who would exploit them." On Earth, Admiral Victoria Stone's Operation Prometheus had entered its final phase. The secrets of Nexus 7 were only part of the equation. Humanity had spent 20 years preparing for this moment, building alliances and gathering intelligence while the Council dismissed them as primitive newcomers. "Fleet positions confirmed," her tactical officer reported. The Andoran Diplomatic Corps has formally requested asylum on Earth. 6 other species have indicated their willingness to break from the Council's authority. Stone studied the holographic display showing fleet movements across the sector. The Council never understood what makes humanity different, she mused. They see our history of conflict as primitive. They don't realize that surviving our own worst impulses made us stronger than their enforced peace ever could. Back on Nexus 7, Marcus had made a breakthrough. The ancient technology wasn't just data storage. It was a key to something far more significant. The planet's lethal conditions weren't natural. They were part of a defense system created by a civilization that had opposed the Council's rise to power eons ago. Each crystal formation is part of a network, he recorded, his voice tight with excitement. The toxic atmosphere, the gravity wells, even the predatory life forms, they're all connected. This isn't a death world. It's a fortress, and we're not the first species to recognize the Council's corruption. In hidden chambers across the galaxy, representatives from races that had long chafed under Council rule began to move. The Sylphids, their crystalline wings dimmed in secrecy, transmitted vital defense protocols to Earth. The Mechanoid Collective, or at least those members who had broken from their central authority, began integrating their technology with human quantum shields. The Council's military response was swift but uncoordinated. Ships from a dozen species converged on the Sol system, only to find themselves facing not just human defenses, but a coalition of races united against centuries of Council manipulation. They're broadcasting something from Nexus 7, Stone's communications officer announced. Something's changing on the planet's surface. The Council's cameras showed Marcus standing before a massive crystalline structure, his hands moving across patterns that responded to his touch. The planet's lethal storms began to shift, forming patterns that even the Council's most advanced AI couldn't predict. You wanted to show the galaxy humanity's weakness, Marcus's voice carried across all frequencies. Instead, you've shown them that we can survive anything, even your corruption. The beings who built this world left a message. The Council's authority was never absolute. It was built on lies and maintained through fear. In the Council chambers, Lyra's voice cut through the chaos. The humans have done what we feared for millennia. They've unlocked the secrets of the predecessor race. The species we erased from our histories because they challenged our right to rule. The crystalline structures of Nexus 7 had begun to pulse with energy that defied the Council's sensors. Marcus stood at the heart of it all, no longer a condemned man, but a key to revolution. "You thought this planet would be my grave," he transmitted. "Instead, it's going to be the birthplace of a new galactic order." Admiral Stone received the signal she had been waiting for. Across human space, quantum shields synchronized with the energy patterns emanating from Nexus 7. The technology the Council had tried to steal was only a fraction of what humanity had developed. "All forces, execute final protocol," she commanded. "Let's show the galaxy what happens when you back humanity into a corner." The war for the galaxy's future had begun, and at its heart was a truth the Council had tried to bury on countless death worlds. Power built on fear would always fall to the strength of those who refused to be afraid. Alliance and betrayal. The Galactic Core blazed with weapons fire as the Council's dominion began to crumble. Quantum-shielded Earth vessels, now joined by ships from 7 different species, engaged the Council's defense fleets in battles that stretched across entire solar systems. But the real war wasn't being fought in space. It was being waged in the hearts and minds of 1,000 worlds. On Nexus 7, Marcus Hayes stood within the ancient control center he had discovered, watching as holographic displays showed the spread of rebellion across the galaxy. The predecessor technology responded to his presence in ways that both thrilled and unsettled him. They weren't just fighting the Council, he recorded. They were waiting for someone to finish what they started. The crystalline walls pulsed with energy as more of the planet's secrets revealed themselves. The predecessors hadn't just built weapons, they had created a network of worlds like Nexus 7, each one holding pieces of technology that could shatter the Council's grip on power. The death worlds weren't meant to execute prisoners. They were tests, waiting for species strong enough to survive them and wise enough to use what they found. In Earth's war room, Admiral Victoria Stone received updates from across human space. The quantum shield technology had been only the beginning. Human scientists, working with their new allies, were decoding centuries of suppressed innovations that the Council had buried to maintain their control. The Sylphids have confirmed that 3 more death worlds have activated, her intelligence chief reported. The energy signatures match Nexus 7. Whatever Commander Hayes unlocked, it's spreading. Stone studied the tactical display, watching as traditional battle lines dissolved into something more complex. The Council didn't just fear our technology, she observed. They feared what we represent: change, adaptation, the refusal to accept artificial limitations. But not all species welcomed this revolution. The Draconid Empire, seeing their privileged position within the Council threatened, launched a desperate attack on Earth's colonies. Their weapons, designed to overwhelm quantum shields, tore through defensive lines and reduced settlements to ash. High Arbiter Zenith, his energy form now a maelstrom of chaos, addressed the remaining loyal Council members. The humans have forced our hand. We must use the Omega Protocol. Better to destroy 1,000 worlds than allow these upstarts to upset an order that has maintained peace for millennia. The Omega Protocol, the Council's ultimate weapon, capable of inducing artificial supernovas. Its existence had been rumored but never confirmed, another secret kept from the galaxy's younger races. As the order went out, ships began positioning themselves near strategic stars, preparing to trigger chain reactions that would devastate entire sectors. But the Council had miscalculated again. The Mechanoid Collective, their machine minds linked to networks spanning the galaxy, detected the protocol's activation. Through channels hidden in what the Council thought were simple maintenance routines, they transmitted the warning to Earth. Multiple Council vessels moving into position around major stellar bodies, Stone's sensors officer reported. Energy readings suggest they're preparing for coordinated stellar detonation. In that moment, humanity's greatest strength proved to be not their technology or resilience, but their ability to inspire others to act. The Andorans, custodians of the galaxy's oldest libraries, broke their neutrality. Hidden beneath their crystalline cities lay ships that had not flown in 10,000 years, vessels built by the predecessors themselves. "We have watched and waited," Lyra transmitted across all frequencies. "The predecessors chose their successors well. Humanity has proven themselves not through conquest, but through their refusal to be conquered." On Nexus 7, Marcus made a discovery that changed everything. The planet's lethal storms, its crushing gravity, even its seemingly hostile life forms, they weren't weapons at all. They were components of a vast machine, one that could neutralize the very forces the Council planned to unleash. "The predecessors didn't just leave us weapons," he transmitted to Stone. "They left us a choice. We can use this technology to destroy the Council, or we can use it to save everyone, even our enemies." The decision crystallized in Stone's mind. Humanity had fought too hard to become what they had feared. "All forces, new objective," she commanded. "Protect Council worlds from stellar detonation. Show them what humanity really stands for." As Earth's fleets moved to defend the very powers that had tried to destroy them, the galaxy watched in astonishment. The Council's narrative of humanity as primitive and dangerous crumbled in the face of their actions. Even the Draconids, seeing their own worlds protected by human quantum shields, began to question their loyalties. The control center on Nexus 7 hummed with power as Marcus activated sequences that had waited eons for this moment. Across the galaxy, other death worlds awakened, not as weapons of destruction, but as nodes in a network of protection. The predecessor technology didn't just defend against the Omega Protocol. It rendered such weapons impossible, creating zones of stability that would prevent stars from being weaponized ever again. The true test wasn't survival, Marcus realized, watching as the ancient machinery transformed the galaxy. It was whether we would choose to use power for vengeance or protection. As the Council's final gambit failed, as their weapons fell silent and their threats turned hollow, humanity emerged not as conquerors but as guardians. The revolution they had sparked would reshape the galaxy not through destruction, but through the very qualities the Council had dismissed: compassion, adaptation, and the unwavering belief that no power had the right to stem the tide of progress. Revolution's dawn. The great chambers of the Galactic Council, once a symbol of absolute power, now stood transformed. The crystalline spires that had witnessed countless judgments now pulsed with predecessor energy, their surfaces reflecting not just light, but the promise of a new era. In the center of it all stood Marcus Hayes, no longer a condemned man, but a bridge between past and future. The predecessors didn't fall to the Council's might. Marcus addressed the assembled representatives of 1,000 worlds. They chose to wait. They transformed their worlds into vaults not to hide from history, but to preserve something for those who would prove worthy of it. The holographic displays that had once shown council proclamations now revealed the true extent of the predecessor network. Each death world was a guardian, part of a system designed to prevent any single power from achieving absolute dominion over the galaxy. The council hadn't created places of execution. They had unknowingly maintained the very tools that would eventually end their reign. Admiral Victoria Stone, standing beside the Andoran delegate Lyra, watched as former council enforcers laid down their weapons. Humanity's greatest victory, she observed, wasn't in surviving their punishment, but in showing the galaxy a different path. The predecessor technology had done more than just neutralize the Omega Protocol. It had revealed the artificial barriers the Council had placed on technological advancement, the ways they had stunted the growth of countless species to maintain their control. As these barriers fell, a renaissance of innovation swept across the galaxy. High Arbiter Zenith, his energy form now contained within a simple vessel, addressed his former subjects. "We believed order could only come through control. We were wrong. True stability comes from growth, from the freedom to evolve and adapt." The Draconid Empire, once the Council's staunchest supporters, had undergone their own transformation. Ambassador Krell, his scales now bearing the iridescent marks of reform, spoke for many former Council loyalists. "We feared change because we had forgotten how to change ourselves. Humanity reminded us that adaptation is not weakness. It is the greatest strength any species can possess." In orbit around Nexus 7, ships from across the galaxy gathered to witness the planet's final transformation. The lethal storms calmed, the crushing gravity normalized, and the seemingly hostile life forms revealed their true nature, not as weapons, but as caretakers of ancient knowledge. "The predecessors left us more than technology," Marcus explained, as the planet's surface bloomed with structures that had lain dormant for millennia. "They left us a challenge, not to prove our strength through destruction, but to demonstrate our wisdom through protection." The quantum shields that had sparked the conflict evolved into something far more profound, a network of safeguards that would prevent any future attempt to dominate the galaxy through force. But unlike the Council's restrictions, these protections encouraged innovation and exploration while preventing only the most destructive applications of power. Admiral Stone, addressing the combined fleets of Earth and their allies, outlined humanity's new role. "We were never meant to be conquerors or subjects. We are guides, proof that the path to advancement doesn't require the sacrifice of freedom or dignity." The transformation spread across known space. The Council's former death worlds, each one a vault of predecessor wisdom, awakened one by one. They became centers of learning and innovation, where species once deemed primitive or dangerous could access knowledge that had been denied to them for centuries. In the Andoran archives, Lyra unveiled records that had been hidden since the Council's rise to power. "The predecessors didn't seek to rule," she revealed. "They sought to prepare. They saw in humanity the same qualities they once possessed: resilience, adaptability, and most importantly, the capacity to choose protection over power." The galaxy entered a new age, one where advancement was no longer measured by the ability to destroy or dominate, but by the capacity to innovate and protect. The Council's former chambers became a center of cooperation, where representatives from all species could share knowledge and resources freely. Marcus, standing in what had once been his prison cell on Nexus 7, reflected on the journey that had brought them here. They thought they were writing humanity's epitaph, he said, watching ships from 100 worlds dock at the newly constructed spaceport above. Instead, they helped us write the first chapter of a new galactic history. The final pieces of predecessor technology activated across the galaxy, not as weapons or tools of control, but as safeguards against the very tyranny that had necessitated their creation. The network they formed wasn't a chain to bind the galaxy, but a framework to support its growth. Admiral Stone, in her final address before stepping down from military command, summed up the revolution's true victory. We came to the stars carrying the lessons of our own history, that true strength lies not in the power to destroy, but in the courage to protect, the wisdom to learn, and the determination to ensure that no species ever faces extinction for daring to advance. As the new era dawned, the galaxy learned what humanity had known all along, that the greatest adventures begin not with conquest, but with the simple, unwavering refusal to accept the limitations others would impose. The stars beckon not as battlefield or territory to be claimed, but as an endless frontier of discovery, waiting for all who dared to explore.